Well guys, we're going to be replacing the water pump on my Jeep here. This is a 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee with the 4.0 inline 6. The water pump's been leaking for quite some time, and it's losing coolant pretty fast now. I just filled this up a couple days ago up to here. You can see the coolant all the way down to the add line. So I need to get this replaced. This engine was just rebuilt, if you've been following along, and I don't want to risk running too low on coolant and blowing the head gasket. So it's not a hard repair, and we'll get to it and I'll show you how. Okay, the first thing we need to do is remove the fan shroud so we have better access to the water pump that's down there. So we need to remove these 10mm bolts. One's right there, there's one way down in there, and then one right there, and another one way down there, but that one is gone. So just 3 of them, but 4 for you guys. All right, once you've got those 4 bolts, or in my case 3, I just pop off the overflow hose, lay it off to the side. The electric fan will have to be disconnected. The connector for it is down here. And then I'll remove this hose. And this will leak a little bit of coolant out, so get a drain pan if you don't have one. But I'll just take it off and then pull it up. Kind of pin it back like that so it doesn't drain everywhere. And then the fan should come out. Just gonna have to work it out. Now you can see how much space we have. The next thing to pull off is this pulley. I like to leave the belt on first and then break these loose and then take the belt off and then remove the pulley. That way you're not having to struggle to hold it in place while you break these loose. Unless you have an impact, it doesn't matter. But in this case, I just have a 13mm. So now we can remove the belt. If you look down here on the tensioner, you'll see the 1/2-inch drive right here. I've just got a breaker bar that's 1/2 inch. So we'll put it in there, and then you can just push down and remove the belt. Like that. And then you can take off the water pump pulley the rest of the way. There we go. You should be able to see down here. Alright, so now we're gonna have to remove this hose off the water pump and then the water pump itself. But before we do that, we need to drain the coolant out of the radiator. I've got myself a drain bucket here. I'm just gonna put it underneath the radiator drain and remove this top hose. Don't forget to put a drain pan under the water pump, because when you break this loose, it's gonna drain all the water that's in the head. So, and then I've got the bucket over there catching the backflow through the radiator, so it's pretty much drained. Now we can fold this hose out of the way for a minute, just like that. We need to remove this idler pulley because there's a hard line that comes down here at the top of the water pump. This is a 15mm bolt. Just take that whole thing off. Now we've got some clearance here for when we pull the water pump. Next up is this hard line. We need to remove this heater hose. This hose goes to the heater core in the front, so I'll take it off real quick. Alright, I got that up and kind of bent up so that it doesn't leak coolant everywhere. At this point, we're good to remove, I think it's 5 of these 13mm bolts around the water pump. water pump's off. You see those brown stains there? There's a small hole right there. When the bearing or seal, whatever goes out, it starts to leak out of this hole, and that stain is just it leaking out for the last several months. So I've got the new one here. And we need to transfer this hardline over to this one. And then one thing to note is this kit. I got this water pump from Gates off Rock Auto. There's the part number if you want it. This kit does come with new bolts for the fan pulley and a gasket, but I don't really recommend using this gasket. I bought a separate gasket from Felpro. This one I just picked up at O'Reilly's. You can find it on Rock Auto as well. There's the part number. And they put these kind of red sealing beads along the edges, which seals a lot better. I've had these kind leak before, so I just like to go with this one. I'm pretty sure this is a 19 millimeter, but I don't have one, so I'm just gonna use a crescent wrench and my hammer. Alright, now that we've got it off, I went inside, cleaned it up with a wire brush a little bit just to get any kind of that junk off. We need to put some Teflon tape on these threads first so that they seal. All right. If I had more time, I would clean this up and repaint it and everything just to make it look nice, but this is my daily driver, so kind of need it back by tomorrow. So that's about the angle it's gonna need to be. So I'm gonna see if I can get one more turn out of it. Next thing we need to do is get this old gasket off. You can use a razor blade, or in my case, I have a carbide scraper. All right, now we've got our gasket. We'll put this on. The red base is me. I like to take the top bolt and put it in there so that it holds that gasket in place while I'm trying to position the pump. Just make sure when you put the rest of the other bolts in that it goes through that gasket. All right, the next thing we need to do is torque all these down to 22 foot-pounds. And then you can see this hard line that goes back toward this heater hose here is slightly off center there. So I'm gonna turn it just a smidge like that. And that way it lines up nicely, it's out of the way. So 22 foot-pounds for all these bolts. All right, now we can put the hose back on down here. Then we need to add this heater hose back onto the hard line. Just push that on. Don't forget to put your tensioner back on, right there. All right, then I put the pulley back on. I'm using the new bolts that came with the kit. I'm not going to tighten them down yet until I put the belt on. So we'll put the belt on next, and then we'll tighten these down. Belt on there. You can look and see how it's routed. Down here, the tensioner around the crank. Up around the water. Around the compressor. Power steering. And then the idler. Now we can tighten these down. And then these get torqued to 15 foot-pounds. Next is the fan and fan shroud. Alright, fan shroud's in place. We've got them bolted in. Now we just need to replace this top coolant hose. and then the overflow hose, which just goes down in this channel, and then it just pushes like that. Alright, and then don't forget to put the radiator drain plug back in, otherwise when you go to fill this up, you're going to have a bad day. And then I removed the air box just to make it easier to get to the bolts on this side, but it just kind of goes up in here. It's not really bolted in or anything, at least on mine. So, but I think on the ones that are bolted in, just take the air filter out and there's like 1 or 2 bolts on the bottom. So, and then we should be good to fill the radiator with coolant. I'm just using this stuff from O'Reilly's. That's funny, I didn't open that. Someone opened this. It smells like coolant, so I'm going to open up this hose so that the air can escape while I pour, otherwise it's going to take forever. And then we'll also be able to see if it's full. Reinstall the hose. Now we can crank it, let it get up to temperature, open that thermostat, and then fill it the rest of the way with coolant. Double check, make sure everything's working all right. I think the thermostat's starting to open here. It's pulling in more coolant. So we'll keep it topped off. I'm starting to see some steam. So we'll just let it keep running until it doesn't take any more. That's it there. Check the temperature gauge. We're up to operating temp. Alright, I was noticing this dripping right here. And it's coming from the bottom of this hose. I couldn't find anything wrong with the hose, so I also checked for cracks in the radiator side, but I didn't find any, so I just moved the hose clamp kind of to where this newer rubber is, and hopefully there's enough compression there to seal it. And one other thing that I forgot to do, so don't make the same mistake as me, make sure you plug in your radiator fan, otherwise it will overheat. Alright, here you can see that we're sitting just under the 210 mark, which is right where you want to be. That right there is the ideal spot. We're going to take it for a spin. That hose isn't leaking anymore, so we're good there. We'll go around the block to make sure everything's good. Alright, we're sitting right where we want to be after the test drive. I topped off the reservoir, so I got a check engine light still for a shorted O2 sensor. That's for another video. But thanks for watching, and hopefully this helped one of you guys out.